Brethren, ladies, and distinguished guests, it's my honor and privilege to welcome you all to Carthage Benevolent Lodge number 14 this afternoon for the purpose of celebrating our Bicentennial. Would you all please stand? As we begin this afternoon, and as we do when we begin any meeting as Masons, I feel it's appropriate for us to begin and open with a word of prayer. Brother Chaplain, would you lead us in an opening prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, we bow today, we want to thank you for the many blessings of life. Dear Heavenly Father, for the many things that you give us that we just take for granted each day. Dear Lord, our health and those many other things. Thank you for those things each day. Dear Heavenly Father, bless each and every one that's come here today, dear Heavenly Father. We stand by wonderful hand, dear Lord, and bless each and every one. Be with each and every one to go out into life, dear Heavenly Father, that we can lead a life in front of those, dear Lord, that know what we have in our heart. And we thank you most of all for sending down your Son, your Heavenly Father, and He died upon the cross. Just be with us, watch over us, lead us, guide us, and help us in everything that we do. And we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
So mote it be. Brother Senior Steward, Matt Inyart, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Once again, thank you all for coming out this afternoon. My name is Dylan Reed, and I'm the Worshipful Master of Carthage Benevolent Lodge, number 14. The event that we're celebrating today is one that few lodges in the state have yet had the opportunity to celebrate. In fact, very few organizations, Masonic and otherwise, have had the opportunity to celebrate a bicentennial. We appreciate all of you coming out and supporting the members of this lodge for this very special occasion. First order of business today, I would like to recognize some of our special guests, and I'd like to begin by introducing the most worshipful Grand Master of the state of Tennessee, Brother Casey Hood.
Worshipful Master, I want to take just a moment to introduce some of my suite that are here with me today. First, I have Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, Brother Dickie McKinney. I have Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden, Brother Robert Reed. I have Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden, Brother Charlie Mixon. I have my Worshipful Senior Grand Deacon with me here today, Joe McKnight. I have Most Worshipful Past Grand Master and current Grand Secretary, Roy Etherton. I have Past Grand Master, 1994, Most Worshipful Tom Hager, and current Grand Treasurer. I had him here. He snuck out. I also have Most Worshipful Past Grand Master Laddie Wilson. There we go. There's Laddie. I have District 24 Chairman with us today, Brother Roger Forbes. There's Brother Roger. I have District 12 Chairman, Brother Gary Reed. I have the Secretary of the Widows and Orphans Home Fund, Brother Keith Walker. I have member of the Arrangements and Building Committee, Brother Bill Woodward. And I don't think I've missed anybody. If I did, I apologize greatly. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like for you to give these guys a hand. Most of these guys have come a long way to be here to help in your celebration today. Thank you for coming. The most important one. I knew I would forget somebody. Worshipful Brother Walter Seifert is my Grand Historian. Would you please stand? Not only is he our Grand Historian this year, he is one of a handful of men who, through a lifetime of service to the craft, is the Andrew Jackson Medal Award winner. And please give him his own special round of applause for his efforts.
Thank you, Most Worshipful. We also have several elected officials with us today that I would like to recognize. We have State Representative Terry Lynn Weaver. We have Representative Mark Pody, Smith County Mayor Michael Nesbitt, Carthage Mayor Donnie Dennis, and our Smith County Sheriff Steve Hopper. Would you join me in giving them a round of applause? Thank you all for coming out and supporting us today. I said before we ate, whenever we blessed the food, that I was really humbled to have this great number out. This is the most people I've ever seen in this lodge since I've been here. And I'm really excited to see all of you here today. Before we talk about the history of Carthage Benevolent Lodge number 14, I'd like for us to take a little time to learn about Masonry and what Masonry is and whatever else he decides he wants to talk about. So for that, please help me welcome Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master for the state of Tennessee, Brother Buddy McKinney.
How many people we have in the room that's not Masons? We got our wives over here, they're just like Masons. They've been to so many meetings with us over here. You know, I know that's a question even a lot of Masons wonder about. What is Masonry? What does Masonry mean to you? All right, we are a fraternity of brothers who, when joined together, we believe in charity, friendship, morality, brotherly love. We believe in patriotism. And we join all this together hopefully for the betterment of mankind. Say, well, what do Masons do? And I have said this at our district meetings all the way across the state this year, and this is something that's been told to me and several other people ever since I've known anything about Masonry. We take a good man and make him better. Well, how do we make him better? We make him better through the teachings of Masonry. As you have noticed, on our altar here is the Holy Bible. Now, that Holy Bible in Masonry is known as the rule and guide of our faith and practice. As a Christian, it should always be our rule and guide. It would make any difference whether we're a Mason or not. I reflect back on thinking about what I was told when I was a kid, when I would get out and get to run around with someone that my parents didn't like. They say, you are who you associate with. If you associate with good people, it helps you become a better person. Does anyone disagree with me on that? So with all of this said, we, as joined together in a group, and in Tennessee we are roughly 36,000 strong. The biggest input of Masonry came right after World War II. And that was the biggest time that we had the joining of people to come into Masonry. And it's, like I said, the patriotism part of it goes along with it. As you have just witnessed here today, the way we start all of our meetings, we start them with a prayer. We pledge allegiance to the flag. They say, well, you're a Christian organization. We do not offer a plan of salvation. Yes, what we do in Masonry is based on what is in our great light of Masonry in that Holy Bible. But no, sir, we are not a religion, nor are we a cult. Masonry starts off with the 3 basic degrees. What we call them is entered apprentice, first degree, fellow craft, second degree, and a master mason, the 3rd degree. Think about this back in biblical time with the stonemasons. They are sort of like, I guess a good way to put it in today's time, they started out learning as entered apprentices. They become familiar with the craft when they are fellow crafts, and when they become masters, they are able to make the decisions for the entered apprentices and for the fellow crafts as to how they would design the stones to build the temples with. They did that, and it was sort of like a union job, I guess you'd say. When it got done and where they lived, there was no more work for them. So the stonemasons figured out a way that they could travel from country to country and still earn wages. So that was sort of incorporated into the word masonry for us. Of course, we do travel all over the state of Tennessee, meeting the finest people we can meet anywhere along the way. No, we do not solicit membership. I've heard people say, well, I've never been asked to be a Mason. You won't be. You can be one of the finest people on the face of the earth, and you will not be asked to be a Mason. That has to be of your own free will and accord. That comes from you. That's something that you have to make that decision yourself. We take our teachings and we try to make our communities better. We learn more how to be a better person through calmness, through being around people who, we're not perfect now, by no means, who have maybe struggled on a few things in life and learned the ways of life and are able to pass them on to people along the way. As I come into Carthage Lodge here, I look on the wall back here just inside the door, and the picture there of the four brothers there, that was, they did probably as much traveling from lodge to lodge around in Smith County and adjoining counties than anybody that's ever been in this lodge. And Brother K.I. Wright, who a lot of you know, some of you don't, who is a grand lecturer, goes across the state of Middle Tennessee. And he had nicknamed those the Skeleton Crew because of Brother Jimmy Skelton, who always drove the rest of them around. And I remember what Brother Pete Smith said one night. It was very shortly after his wife passed away. I have trouble with this. We always give people in the lodge the opportunity to say what's on your heart or your mind before you leave. He stood up one night, he always sometime had a little joke to crack or something, but he stood up one night, he said, masonry is good for a lot of things. He said, it helps you meet a lot of fine people. He said, it helps you in public speaking because we're always standing up in front of somebody talking. And he said, it helps in loneliness. But masonry is here. You know, we have charities, we have all different degrees. It don't make any difference. You could be a 33rd degree Mason and be no more Mason than you were when you were a 3rd degree when you were a Master Mason. It is more information as to the background of Masonry, I guess is the best way I could put that. And it does not make any difference if you're worth $1 million or if you're worth 5 cents. It doesn't make any difference if you're digging a ditch or you're the president of the largest bank in the United States. We're all still one and the same, and we consider ourselves on the same level. No one is above the other one. Yes, you see the 3 stationed officers standing up on these steps, or sitting up on these steps. That is the 3 stationed officers in the lodge. We call our master of the lodge our worshipful master. No, we do not worship him. That's the first thing that people say, well, you worship him. No, we don't worship him. That was a title that came back, the way I can study that, back in the 1800s, and honorable. It's just a way of honoring him for becoming well enough and versed enough in what we do as to be able to rule and govern his lodge. And then he has his officers as they come on down. The officers, the installation ceremony is the best time to learn what officers are supposed to be doing. If you pay real close attention during the installation ceremony, it'll tell you, and they are, most of the time, they are open to the public. It will tell you what each officer's duty is, from preparing the food for the meal, and we do eat, as you can all see we did just a few minutes ago. We always have good food. Some of them is duty to take care of that. Others is to rule and govern the lodge. We have our charities, as I said earlier. Each we have York Rite, Scottish Rite, and probably one of the most, I guess you'd say, visible part of people, or you see the shrine. Now, people, I've been out and collecting, I got to tell this and for a lot of people, I've been out collecting money for the shrine for a long time. You go to people's houses, tell them what you're there for. Got that funny hat, called a fez, got that funny hat on your head, most uncomfortable thing you ever wore if you never wore one of them. But they'll say, oh, them Masons, they're a cult. Them Shriners, they good people. Y'all help these kids. For anyone who does not know it, every Shriner is a Mason. They're a Mason to be able to become a Shriner. That is just something else. That is their, as you would say, cup of tea, is their way of giving back and their way of showing where their feelings lie. But a cult goes out and solicits people. You get in, you can't get out. That's one thing about Masonry. Hard to get in, real easy to get out. Real easy. So don't ever think we're a cult. You can get on the internet. That's what I tell this to prospective people who petition the lodge. I say, don't get on the internet and read nothing. I said, you can find what Masons are and what Masonry is on the internet. But you can also find what is not. The problem is you can't distinguish which is true and which is false until you get in and find out. But ladies, trust me, your husbands or husband-to-be, when we come to the lodge, they're in safe hands. Trust me. They are somewhere that I think you will be proud of them to be. And with that said, if anyone's got a question, I'll try to answer it. And if not, we've got the Most Worshipful Grand Master here, and we'll turn it over to him. Does anyone got any questions you'd like to ask that I might be able to help you with? Silence prevails. Worshipful Master, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brother Buddy. So now that those of you who might not be Masons are familiar with what Masonry is, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Carthage Benevolent Lodge and its 200-year history. Carthage Benevolent Lodge was chartered on July 18th, 1817. Several members of King Solomon Lodge number 6 in Gallatin petitioned the Grand Lodge and were granted dispensation in April of 1816. One of those petitioners was Major Tillman Dixon, a Revolutionary War veteran who settled the Dixon Springs area of Smith County and built Dixona, Smith County's first post office and tavern. While we were working under dispensation, Carthage was one of the lodges that voted to establish a permanent Grand Lodge in Nashville. The stationed officers of Carthage Benevolent Lodge in 1817 were James Rux, Worshipful Master, J.R. Canfield, Senior Warden, and Zachariah Goodall, Junior Warden. One of our charter members was A.W. Overton, a nephew of John Overton. John Overton lived at Travelers Rest, served as a Supreme Court Justice, and co-founded the city of Memphis. John Overton spoke at our dedication ceremony in 1817, and I have his speech in its entirety, which I would like to share with you in a moment. One of our earliest worshipful masters was Robert Carruthers, who served in 1824 and 1825. He later served as master of Lebanon Lodge before he served the state as Grand Master in 1849. Carruthers was a lawyer, Supreme Court Justice, Congressman, and he was elected the governor of the Confederate state of Tennessee in 1863 though he was never able to assume the office. Throughout the 1800s, there were several years of inactivity in the lodge due to the anti-Masonic political movements and the outbreak of the Civil War. However, between those periods of difficulty, our lodge prospered and mothered several other Smith County lodges, including Martin Lodge, number 141, in 1848, New Middleton Lodge, number 249, in 1856, Snow Creek Lodge, number 346, and Smith Fork Lodge, number 352, in 1867, Difficult Lodge, number 451, in 1874, and Cage Lodge in 1876. Our lodge was previously located in the area now occupied by Thule Furniture Store. After that building burned, a new lodge hall was built, and the lodge moved into this building in 1885. When the petition for dispensation for Carthage Benevolent Lodge was filed, James Madison was serving as the 4th President of the United States. Donald Trump is now serving as our 45th President. In 1817, when this lodge was chartered, there were 19 states in the United States of America. We now have 50. This lodge has existed during the Texas and Indian Wars, the Mexican-American War, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, the Cold War, the Korean War, Vietnam, the Gulf War, and the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And we hope that this lodge has many more years to stand for the Masonic principles that we hold dear, which Brother Buddy just told you about. And those Masonic principles bring me back to John Overton's speech he gave at the dedication ceremony for our lodge. Does anybody here know the significance of today's date, June 24th? June 24th is the day set aside to celebrate the birth of St. John the Baptist. And several important events that have led us to this point have happened on this day. First, the United Grand Lodge of England was formed on June 24th, 1717. Today marks 300 years for the Grand Lodge of England. On June 24th, 1817, John Overton delivered his speech to the brethren and guests present at the dedication ceremony for Carthage Benevolent Lodge number 14. Because of the history behind this speech and its significance to this lodge and Masonry in general, I would like to read it in its entirety. And it is a little lengthy, but because of the significance it holds, I want to read it. And I tried to omit some parts of the speech, but the way it's written and how beautiful it was really impossible to leave anything out. And I'll tell you the story of how we found this speech. It's pretty amazing. Brother Colby and I went to the Smith County Library, and we were looking through old newspapers and other documents they had to find some history on the lodge. The Smith County Library has one newspaper from 1817, one issue of the Carthage Gazette, and it is the July 1st edition in which this speech was printed. And so I would like to read it, and I ask you to bear with me because you will see very quickly it is written very beautifully, but using a lot of vocabulary and language that we just don't use anymore. And we had to transcribe it from the microfilm it was stored on, and some places were a little difficult to make out. So I ask that you bear with me. But this was located in the Carthage Gazette, July 1st, delivered on the 24th day of June, 1817, to the Carthage Benevolent Lodge by Brother John Overton. Respectable brethren, we have met together this day to celebrate the virtues of a departed who was very worthy of our order. In the performance of a duty assigned to me, I feel my inadequacy to do justice to the character of him whose worth we ought so highly revere, whose zealous virtue and devout Christianity is deeply impressed upon every mind. This is the anniversary of St. John, that St. John who is the harbinger of peace on earth and goodwill to all men, who is the precursor of one more mighty than him, who with the means of salvation in one hand and the anathemas of heaven in the other, communicated to a dark and superstitious age the coming of our Savior. For he that cometh after me is mightier than I. To review the life of this worthy member of our order, to search out and develop the antiquity and arcana of Masonry, I will leave for others with more experience. Suffice it to say that him whose birthday we have convened to celebrate the glad tidings of universal redemption was no less devoted to the principles of Masonry and versed in all the beauties and harmony of our order. It was then the beauties of Masonry shone with resplendent luster. It was then the principles of our sacred and hallowed institution dawned upon the world, and like the great orb of the day, shed light and heat around, illuminating all sublunary things. The permanency of our association for nearly 6,000 years affords satisfactory evidence of the immutable principles upon which it is erected. We have witnessed during that space of time, revolution after revolution, changes and innovations in the physical, mortal world. We have witnessed millions of human beings swept from existence, where now there is no vestige left but their moldering ashes, mingling again with Mother Earth. Whole empires have passed away. Religion, civil, and political institutions have fallen to the ground, and the wisest governments in ancient or modern times have crumbled into undistinguishable ruin. Where was once the fruitful harvest is now a desolate waste. Where once the busy crowd plied all the energies of their nature in art and improvement, where the lofty pillar, the majestic pedestal, the heaven-kissing dome reared their apex to the skies, bespeaking aloud the ingenuity and industry of man, now presents a heap of ruin. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and all the convulsions incident to matter have agitated this globe. Yet the bright and uniform principles of our order have continued unmoved amid the wreck of matter and the concision of words. The situation we occupy is an important one. We have the eyes of the world upon us. The ties that bind us together are such as will never induce us to keep a firm and steadfast eye upon those pure and immaculate principles which have preserved us so long. We should therefore look to them as the text of our instruction and the ark of our safety. In every science and every art, there are certain fixed and fundamental principles upon which it is built. And in proportion as these principles are understood and pursued in the same ratio that will science or art improve and approximate that point of penetration for which it was designed, just so it is with Masonry. The principles and rules which govern and unite us together for the most laudable of all earthly purposes should frequently be revered to as the only sure and safe means by which our happiness may be consummated, and therefore communicate our usefulness and happiness to an admiring world. We should be wanting to ourselves if our duties and affections were exclusively confined to the brethren of our order. If, like a body of insulated beings, we were to retreat from the world to some dark cavern of the earth and in seclusion withdraw ourselves from the society and benefit of our fellow man, the world might with propriety charge us with principles inimical to philanthropy and human happiness. But the object of the craft, and so it has been from the beginning of time, is to enlarge the sphere of man's happiness and open the way for the consummation of his happiness in heaven. Are these not important objects? Do they not deserve the attentive considerations of every intelligent mind? The principles of our order are so pure as any institution under heaven. Its permanency and uniformity hear ample testimony to the truth of this assertion. The worthy and good of all nations have true admittance into our mysteries. The benevolent and charitable arm of Masonry reaches from the confines of the globe, extends its influence throughout the universe, and is bounded only by the illimitable expanse of eternity. How truly sublime must an institution founded upon such sacred and hallowed principles, terminable only by Him who sways the scepter of universal empire, and at whose feet order and harmony sprang from chaos. Brethren, our hearts should race with joy, our feelings expand with delight, in knowing that we are members of an institution which is to be discovered so much beauty, harmony, and grandeur. From the earliest periods of time, the wise and good of all nations embraced the arts of Masonry. Masonry is intimately connected with the whole routine of science. But for our order, architecture would never have wrought to view the beauty and grandeur of the lofty pillar, the symmetry of the sublime edifice, the strength of the well-turned arch. In a word, the arts of sculpture, painting, and music would all have remained in the copious stores of nature, unseen and unknown to mortal eyes. Mathematical inquiries could never have demonstrated the problems of Euclid, but for the benefits of Masonry. A Ferguson might have wasted his ideas upon the desert air. A Newton might have slumbered in eternal oblivion. We are here likewise urged and stimulated to the improvement of our mental powers in as great a degree as the imperfections of our natures will permit. In becoming a bright and accepted Mason, there is an imperious call to employ and exercise in the highest degree every energy and frugality of the human mind. The memory, the imagination, the judgment, the reason, all must be enlisted and employed ere our minds can be enlightened or our hearts warmed with the beauties and grandeur of so noble an institution. Let it therefore be impressed upon us that the culture and improvement of the human mind stands conspicuous in the objects of Freemasonry. We should therefore be prepared to meet our brethren in mental accomplishments upon equal ground, and the benefits here will be great, and our prospects hereafter brighten. How consoling to the mind, how delightful to reflect that being bright and worthy, we are surrounded with friends throughout this habitable globe. Not those sunshine friends who today, when in the full fruition of prosperity, fawn and flatter at our heels, and tomorrow, when the bleak winds of adversity salute our angel and know no more, but they are friends linked to us by the closest and most indisputable bonds of friendship. To the fatherless, the widow, the orphans, the poor and distressed of all descriptions, their hearts expand to their cries, and they extend the charitable arm of assistance. A Mason's heart is seen and felt at the door, whether absent or present, no matter what nation gave him birth, what language he may speak, what texture of skin or complexion, whether reared in the spicy plains of the torrid zone or a native of the polar snows. His heart beats the tender note of benevolence, friendship, and love. Our institution has for its object the happiness of man, and man's happiness cannot be said to be any more secure unless founded on virtue. We rest our claims upon this immovable basis. Brethren, how much are we enjoined to cultivate and nourish the cardinal virtues? With what fervency are we entreated to be good and true, so as to prepare our minds for a holy and sacred devotion to the Grand Master on high, who controls the destinies of all humans. Placed in this world where difficulties and calamities surround us on all sides, where misery and woe with their demon-like features assail us in all directions, how sweet to the soul of a good and worthy Mason must it be to know that he is horrified against the vice and corruption of human depravity. How serene and peaceful is the life of virtue. How wretched and miserable the days of the vicious. Whether we are doomed to linger out our days in some unknown desert, far from the haunts of cultivated man, amongst the ferocious beasts and savages of the forest. Whether we are fated to suffer the icy cold of the north or parched with the sultry heat of the south. Whether we suffer all the ills that flesh and mind is heir to, yet if our hearts are properly imbued with the virtuous Masonic principles, it affords a balmy antidote to our sufferings in all situations. Virtue and goodness embraces an extensive range of duty to ourselves, to our fellow men, and to our God. The various duties in these relations comprehend all that is necessary to human happiness. Masonry, whose base is founded in virtue, strongly urges us to understand them and perform the duties incident thereto with unshaken firmness. I hope those who have gone before us, kings, princes, emperors, and the worthy and good of all nations, testify the worth and value of our order. Solomon, the wisest of all men, was no less skilled in masonry than he was in other branches of knowledge. Hiram the widow's son, named in the sacred writ, was a worthy member. And that holy St. John, whose birth we now celebrate, was equally fervent in the propagation of Masonic rules as in the preaching the comings of our Savior. In our own country, we have bright luminaries who with heart and hand have explored the arcana of Masonry and with zeal enlisted themselves the brand of the fraternity. Could I not name the intrepid Warren, who fell like a martyr to liberty? At the threshold of our memorable revolution, Dr. Franklin, the philosopher, the patriot, and the man who ought to be held up to the world as a bright model of imitation, was as zealous in the mysteries of the craft as he was in his philosophic researches. I might go on to mention many others whose names have enriched the pages of our faithful history, but I will only fill up the picture by saying that Washington was a brother of our order, that able and undaunted defender of American liberty, the exalted person whose patriotism and firmness led us through the blood and slaughter of a perilous revolution, was a worthy and greatly distinguished brother of our order. Yes, brethren, that Washington was during 8 tedious years of war and danger, stood firm as Mount Atlas. He was a Mason of the highest order, with such light before us, with the example of so much wisdom and virtue, with such scenes in past, present, and future time. We have a hope as strong as the axle of the universe, and bought and expanded as the vault of heaven. Within our sacred walls, all is harmony, peace, and love. Here no intruder for frivolous or malignant purposes dare invade our rights. Here no compulsion is used to unravel our mysteries. Here the mind is left free to act, the heart to feel, and the body to operate in all the beauties of our institution. Now so with many ancient and modern societies, there we have seen the sword of persecution, and reddened with human gore the hand of a brother, imbued in a brother's blood, the father arrayed against the son, and the son against the father. In a word, we have witnessed myriads of human beings sacrificed by the unfeeling hand of oppression to enforce a compliance with some favorite institution. We read of the suffering of millions falling before the frowns of vexatious oppression and dying martyrs in the cause of liberty, religion, and civil government. But in our institution, we have no such noxious weeds gaining strength from depravity and spreading their deleterious ills around. No, our society is famed for its charity, virtue, and love. The life of a good and worthy Mason is as pure as the crystal stream, untarnished and unspotted as the mountain snow. His heart knows no guile, it practices none. He poises himself upon the rectitude of his own actions and the conscious reflection of having done his duty. His march like the sun in his meridian splendor, bedding light, dignity, and animation around, and he dies as he lived, to the esteem and glory of the world. Let us then endeavor to cultivate and improve those valuable qualities which elevate and adorn human nature, which silence and destroy all selfish prejudices, infuse into the mind sentiments of universal philanthropy, and if asked for our country, turn our eyes from this dim spot which men call earth, and point like Anaxagoras to the heavens. May the blessings of heaven shine upon us. May our hearts and hands be duly devoted to the cause of human happiness. May we exercise and employ every virtue. May we possess charity, friendship, and love. May we have the spirit of forgiveness, even to those who asperse. And may we be kind and merciful to our brethren and to all mankind. For to those who refuse to practice these virtues, the throne of God will be inaccessible, and the Savior of the world will have been born in vain. So mote it be. That is the speech that was delivered by Brother John Overton at the dedication of Carthage Benevolent Lodge. And it fit very well with what Brother Buddy had to say about Masonry and the principles of Masonry and what we're founded on: virtue, brotherly love, and truth. And I almost forgot it. I meant to say this before I read the speech. But I have to thank my beautiful fiancée, Jessie, because she is actually the one who sat down and took the time to transcribe this from the microfilm newspaper. And if she had not taken the time to sit down and do that, I don't know that I would have had the time to do it and read it today. So I wanted to thank her for taking the time to do that. At this time, we have some special presentations for the Lodge. I'd like to begin by welcoming Representative Terry Lynn Weaver to come forward. Podium, wherever.
Good evening, or good afternoon, pardon me. I also want to bring where'd my friend Representative Podio? Come on up here, Mark. Senator May Beavers wanted to express her apologies for not being here, but she's a little busy right now. She has brought, through Mark, brought the resolution that we have put together on the state to recognize this great day, this awesome event of 200 years of doing good and doing good for the community. And that is what we're all called to do. We are all called to be community salt and light, to get involved in our communities, to spread what is good, to do what is good. And that's the main mandate of our faith. And I commend you for continuing that, for what you do here and the salt and light that you do here in Carthage. I will have to say, this is the first time, Colby, I have been up here in this room. And so I thank you for inviting Senator May and myself and my good friend Mark Pody as well, who delivered this to us. But I want to read some of it, and then Mark, would you read as well? Basically, again, the main thing that I wanted to just recognize that is written here in this resolution is to recognize the fact that you do not grow weary in doing well, because proof's in the pudding. You've been here 200 years, and that is an amazing feat for an organization to be active and alive and doing as you do for 200 years. So to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the Carthage Benevolent Lodge, number 14, this General Assembly is pleased to honor those organizations that have established a legacy of community service and philanthropy in their communities. And whereas Carthage Benevolent Lodge, number 14, one of the oldest regular and recognized Masonic lodges in the state of Tennessee, is celebrating its 200th anniversary this year under the leadership of Worshipful Master Dylan Thomas Reed, and officially chartered on July 17, 1817. Have any of you checked out some of the amazing pieces of history that are over here on this table? If you have not, I encourage you to do so. I took the opportunity to do that earlier. Matthew gave me a little 101 history class on some of the items there. And the one thing that just blessed me was the manuscript and the writing that these people had, and we have lost that. How many of us still write letters? Not very many of us do. Send a note, a handwritten letter. I do journal. I have loads of journals in my attic, and I'm grateful for the ones who journaled years and years prior to us, because that's how we keep our history, and who have written letters. But that lost art of cursive writing and beautiful penmanship, we need to resurrect that again. How about you starting that, Donnie? Would you do that? But anyway, do take time to look at that. And so we're recognizing the great significance that you all have provided for this community. And I'm going to turn it over to Mark. If you would take it right here about Cumberland. This thing I started right here.
Whereas possessed a rich heritage and a unique culture, the Carthage Benevolent Lodge, number 14, has counted among its membership the legendary U.S. Senator Albert Gore, Sr., Robert L. Carruthers, who helped establish the Cumberland University and served as the first president and board of trustees and co-founded Cumberland School of Law. Whereas the Carthage Benevolent Lodge 14 has survived and prospered over the course of the 200 years of Tennessee history, and the lodge should be recognized on attaining this milestone now and thereafter. Be it resolved by the Senate of the 110th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee, the House of Representatives concurring, that we join with the good people of Carthage and Smith County in commemorating the 200th anniversary of the Carthage Benevolent Lodge number 14, free and accepted Masons, and extend its officers and members our best wishes for the much continued success and fellowship. And obviously, with the history that you all have, Senator Beavers and Representative Lynn, Terry Lynn has put this, Representative Weaver, has put this into the history of Tennessee. And it's actually Senate Joint Resolution 381, which means that people can actually research this 200 years from now, and they would find that, hopefully in a language they could read it. And this is signed by Senator Mae Beavers, Representative Terry Lynn Weaver, the Speaker of the Senate, McNally, as well as the Speaker of the House, Beth Harwell, and the Governor himself, Bill Haslam. Congratulations.
Just P.S. If you want more copies of these, please contact Matthew. I gave you the information. We can get everybody a copy. This is on the record, so this will be on there forever and ever. Amen. So thank you very much for inviting us. God bless you.
And before you leave, I have something that I'd like to present you as well.
Should I give you yours first?
I will take it.
I want that.
Something that hasn't been mentioned yet, that you all probably saw as you came in. One of the things that we decided to do to celebrate this bicentennial was to produce knives, bicentennial knives. We're very happy with the way these knives turned out. And if you want one, we still have some available. If we run out, we can order more. But we're very happy with the way these knives turned out, and I would like to present a knife to Representative Weaver and Representative Pody.
Thank you. Thanks, Dylan. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are they sharp?
They are, yes. I sharpened them myself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Dennis, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I've got situation, but I feel a little more honored that this lodge is in our city. We're very fortunate that our lodge has been here this long. I didn't know for several years that it was here, and it does have some great history. But I'm here today to present this proclamation to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the Carthage Benevolent Lodge number 14, free and accepted Masons. On behalf of the town of Carthage, I congratulate y'all.
And I would also like to present you with one of our bicentennial knives for everything that you do for us and for this town.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sheriff Hopper, would you come forward, please? Sheriff, we're very happy that you are our sheriff, and we thank you for all that you do for us. We thank you for coming out today, taking the time to come and support us for this occasion, and we would like to present you with one of our knives as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. And now we also have some knives to present to the Grand Lodge officers. Would you like for me to call you up one at a time, or would you like for me to call a list of names for you to come forward and get knives, and you just want to pick them up after it's over? Well, we'd like to present knives to our Grand Secretary, our Grand Treasurer, the Right Worshipful Junior Grand Warden, Right Worshipful Senior Grand Warden, Right Worshipful Deputy Grand Master, and our Most Worshipful Grand Master, Brother Casey Hood.
Casey's.
All right, Brother Casey, these knives are numbered, by the way, and this knife is number 17 for the year that you were Worshipful Master of the State of Tennessee and to commemorate the Bicentennial of our lodge.
Thank you very much. Can we get a picture with everybody?
Absolutely. Brother Buddy, your knife is number 18 for what is to come.
Thank you, sir.
We thank you for all you do for this lodge. Brother Roy, thank you for coming today.
My pleasure.
We appreciate you being here. Brother Reed,
Sir.
thank you for coming. Nixon, thank you.
Very, very well.
I want to get a picture of this now.
We can, yeah, absolutely.
Roy, you come with me. I'll hold this one. Where's the photographer?
There he is.
Then we'll take a picture.
Thank you. And Brother Walter, would you come forward, please? It was a special treat for me this morning to see you come into the lodge, being the grand historian, for you to be here in this 200th anniversary of our lodge. And I would like to present you with one of our bicentennial knives as well. Thank you for all that you do for us, Brother Walter.
It'll wind up in the museum.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I would like to open the floor to our Most Worshipful Grand Master, Brother Casey Hood.
Please be seated, please. It's a very humbling thing to stand here and have you men stand before me. As I have said on many occasions, it's I that should stand for each one of you. This fraternity would not be here today for me to be a part of if it was not for each and every one of you. And I thank you for your service to the craft. Worshipful Master, I have a small confession to make. He asked me when I come in, would I give some words of wisdom before we parted, and I said yes. After hearing that beautiful oration you gave, I have changed my mind. I do not have words of wisdom, I just have words. My speech will not be in the Carthage Gazette 200 years from now. I literally wrote my speech coming down the road, and here it is. This is my speech in its entirety, so I hope you keep up with this. They asked would I sign it so they could put this in the archive, so I have done so. And the beautiful young lady in the back that transcribed the fiancé, which one, raise your hand. Dude, congratulations. My condolences to you. So, to the members of this fraternity who have made it what it is today, I thank you for everything that you have done for the craft. To those who have yet to be initiated into the craft, I have a small gift for you that I would like to give before we part here today. I think 6 men raised their hand and said they were not part of the fraternity. Were you one of those, sir? I'm going to give you yours now. This is my gift to you. It's actually called a door opener. The door is open for you. Any place in this room will be proud to talk to you about ministry at any time. So we're here for you. I want to ask some simple questions. 200 years. 200 years of service in this city, to the state of Tennessee, to Masonry. I want to ask, and ladies, please don't answer this question because it'll get me in trouble, but men in the room, how many of you are over 50? Raise your hand. That's a whole lot. How many of you are over 62? How many of you are over 65? I'm going to put your age in perspective with this bicentennial. 1817 is when you were chartered. At that time, to become a Mason, you must have been 21 years of age. Think about the history of this country. You would only have to have been 50 years old when the Constitution of the United States was ratified in 1788. There were members of this lodge who were around when the Constitution of the United States was ratified. If you're 62 years old, there were members of this lodge, just like you are today, that were 62 years old. They were here in 1776 when the Declaration of Independence was issued. Now think about that. The people who helped form this lodge were around when the Declaration of Independence. Even more than that, if you're 65 years old, the beginnings of this country started at the Green Dragon Tavern in Boston, Massachusetts. In 1773, does anybody remember a small little incident called the Boston Tea Party? The lineage of this country goes back to the Boston Tea Party in the minutes of a Masonic meeting that was held at the Boston Green Dragon Tavern, where some men basically left the lodge that night, and shortly thereafter, the Boston Tea Party took place in 1773. So there were members of this lodge that were alive when the Boston Tea Party took place. So your lineage is long and storied. To the uninitiate, you've been explained a little about the esoteric side of Masonry and what we do. We have some leaders of our government here this afternoon to tell you what Masonry means to your form of government. You see the great experiment, which is this country, and where it come from. The Masonic Lodge, which is a representation of King Solomon's Temple, is operated just as your country, as a republic. The Master of the Lodge, as a representative of King Solomon, is your executive branch of the lodge. During the term when the lodge is not meeting, he is your president. He is the person who takes care of business for those days in between stated meetings. Your senior warden in the back is your legislative branch of your government. He takes care of all things legislative as it deals with the lodge. Your junior warden in the south is your judicial branch. He is the one that takes care of matters judicial as it pertains to the lodge. When those Masons in 1776 decided on how to form a country, to choose a republic, to choose it to be governed as it is today, they used a Masonic lodge as their pattern. Our roots go back further than 1717. Our roots go to the building of King Solomon's Temple over 6,000 years ago. So everything you read on the internet about we run the world, it's true, but not in the way you think. You are a direct result, Sheriff, of how we do that. There are 36,000 Masons in the state of Tennessee. Each one of us basically have a wife and a couple of kids and maybe some son-in-laws and grandkids that are of voting age. And each one of us live our life every day by a moral code, which is outlined in that great book in front of you. So when we go to the polls, we vote morally. I'll guarantee you, raise your hand if for the last election, if you voted. I don't care how, just if you voted. We are the majority. We go to the polls. We stand for what's right. So that's how we change the country, one vote at a time. We don't sit on the sidelines. We are a part. So I thank you gentlemen for your service. And lady, I tickled to death to see you up here today to express your faith in the words that you speak. We don't have enough of that in this country today. We don't have enough people that will stand before a microphone and thank God and say that out loud. So I thank you for you exemplifying your faith today. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a distinct pleasure to be here today. To be a part of your 200th anniversary is something that I will never forget. 2017 has been a phenomenal year for me, and I appreciate being a part of your day. I appreciate all the Grand Lodge officers that came, all the Masons that came, all the ladies. You are the most important part of Masonry, and there are two beautiful young girls that were here earlier, and I tried to steal one of them beans, and I don't know where she went to. She might have got mad and left. But thank you guys for coming out, and Worshipful Master, you have done a phenomenal job, and you will be rewarded in time for that. At this time, would everybody please stand? Brother Chaplain, would you please close with a benediction?
Dear Heavenly Father, we bow today, thank you for many blessings of life. Thank you for many things. Be with each and every one of us. We're here. We'll have a safe, pure home, dear Lord. We'll watch over us and guide us in the faith, Heavenly Father. And each time that we meet, no matter where, Lord, that you be with us, watch over us, guide us in the faith. That we'll all be a bright and shining light, dear Heavenly Father, out in the community and out in the world, dear Lord, that people know what we have in our hearts, that we can spread it around, dear Heavenly Father, that know who you are and that you came and you died for each and every one of us. Thank you, dear Lord, the men and women that serve in our military, Lord, that you'll take care of those that are overseas, you watch over them with your big loving arms, you put them around them, take each and every one, dear Heavenly Father, and bring them all back home safe. Please be with our leaders of this land, Lord, the decisions that we make, that they would be good decisions for this country, Lord, that will pull us back closer to thee instead of keep pushing us further and further away, Lord. Just be with us each day, and we'll be humble in the things that we do. Watch over us, lead us, and guide us as we ask all these things in your name. Amen.
So may it be.